Now, in 2017, 8 researchers at Google Brain published a paper called Attention is All You Need. It introduced the transformer architecture, the single idea every large language model built since, from GPT to Gemini to Sarvam, actually runs on. India has unfortunately never produced a paper like that. Not because from a lack of talent or researchers. India ranks, by the way, second globally in AI research paper volume, right behind China. But on citation influence, the measure of how much the rest of the world's science actually builds on your work, India drops to position number 4, behind the United Kingdom, China, and the United States. Now, only a few days back, Tech Mahindra's Chief Innovation Officer Nikhil Malhotra made almost the identical argument publicly that India, and I quote now, is measuring the wrong things, end quote, counting GPUs and models instead of really counting original contributions. Professor Amit Sheth has spent over 4 decades in AI research, mentored more than 55 PhD and postdoctoral students, is now leading labs and companies worldwide, and founded 3 AI startups out of university research. Now, in January of this year, he launched the Indian AI Research Organization, AIRO, which is of course, after the meeting with the Prime Minister in December of 2023. It's truly an honor to have such an institution and an ocean of knowledge joining me exclusively on Front Page. And we are going to be having a very, deep dive, insightful discussion. Obviously, that tends to happen when you have a professor going ahead and conversing with you. Welcome to Front Page, sir. Truly an honor to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Sudhi, and I'm a fan of your program. I look forward to meaningful conversation.
Truly, truly grateful, sir, for that. I'd actually like to get off to a start right off the bat. I want us to kind of establish maybe a context, sir, which is AIRO launched 30th of January 2026 in New Delhi as a Section 8 public-private partnership-based institution under MeitY, aligned with the India AI mission. Now, for someone hearing this name for the very first time, what does AIRO actually do day to day? What's it achieved since January? And what specific gaps made you believe that India needed a new institution to spearhead its cause?
So when I met Modi ji, and he immediately asked me to give keynote to the Niti Aayog's Chief Secretaries Conference. So all 150, 200 of the top bureaucrats from the country were there. There were 2 things on my mind. The type of AI that India should pursue, that doesn't have to be a copycat of what Western or Chinese organizations are doing.
Fair point.
And the type of impact that AI can bring to India in a very unique way. Particularly, you'll see that AIRO is championing what is called a small AI.
Right.
What I will characterize what's happening with US big models or Chinese big models, that's big AI. And even our initial investment in India has been to support large language models to meet India's diversity and cultural needs. Sarvam or Bharat Jain and others have taken up that mantle, and that's required. But there is a lot more of higher importance both for social and economic development that can come from a different kind of AI. I'll be happy to describe that further.
Please, sir.
But so if you think about where the economic value occurs, let me give you a few examples. Suppose I have a chronic health management application along the same line as our India's digital infrastructure. So suppose I have health stack and I have deployed a chronic health management for diabetes at a personalized level. Think about the impact that would have.
Oh, yeah.
Suppose today India produced 0 new drug last year. And in recent times, in fact, suppose India starts to develop its own drugs in addition to just playing the volume game.
Sure.
I mean, there is a lot of history of pharma in India, but we are only into volume, not in value. And there, if we there is extensive application of AI for drug discovery, and suppose we were to actually make that happen, that would be a fantastic outcome. Suppose India is developing all these solar plants and wind plants, and suppose we can deploy a small AI model that is on the air gap, that is right on the site of 500 megawatt deployment, and it saves you X percentage in maintenance cost. Suddenly your
Wonderful.
productivity and thing will
True.
go up. Suppose I put a very small air gapped model on the semiconductor fab with very complex data continuously collected with the quality of material coming in, the process, temperature, all that, and in real time monitor anything going wrong, and help solve the issue, identify the problem, and solve that as fast as possible, reduce the wastage of products that would have happened if the error was not identified.
Sure.
We will save massive amount of money,
True.
and so go forth. And all the examples I gave you, I don't need large language model.
Hmm.
I don't. In fact, what I need to do is to create an AI model that is trained on the data
Yes.
of that particular enterprise, that particular. So we need our own and indigenous data and our own knowledge. We also work on next generation of AI model called neuro-symbolic model. So all the models that you currently talk about are neural network based model. Transformer is an architecture in neural network. But by combining the knowledge and data, so there is a saying, data alone is not enough.
True.
And so we create new kind of models that are very compact. They are custom, solving very specific problem. They are not wasting. They are not being trained on all the data of the world. They are being trained on the data for the problem being solved,
Correct.
and they are neuro-symbolic, and then they can mix and match different agents. Then these models are very cheap to create, frugal, and they are purposeful, solving very specific problem. And this model become core of a product that Indian companies and startups can do it for India and for the world. That way, we can capture a very significant market, just the same way the West has captured
Sure.
the consumer market.
True.
So we have a lot of exciting opportunities, and this is just one early view of the small AI. So for example, IAIRO is building Sandwich platform. In fact, we already have a version of it, on which we already have onboarded first startup to co-develop the small model. So the way
Fabulous.
it works is that this is a platform that allows you to create model for all of these applications that I mentioned in collaboration with the company that wants to deploy it, or a startup that wants to capture a market. And this model get developed at a fraction of the cost. I had once heard, probably on AIM or somewhere else, that a typical startup would spend $7 million and need 8 high quality people to develop the model. We would do model at a fraction of the cost in much less time in a co-develop mode, such that the model then gets IP is transferred to the company, and with that deep IP, investors are very ready to
for
support
sure.
them, and we can go on very fast. So this is a I think shift in the kind of AI that we are bringing in, and we are looking at it in a very comprehensive way. For example, just starting next week, we are offering a boot camp for some of the elite, some of the best undergraduate and master students in India from IITs, BITS, Plaxa,
Wonderful.
and variety of organizations. They will do hands-on work for nearly 2 months and get trained in creating this model. So
Wonderful.
I'm increasing the capacity for creating this model also while working on the technology and all the other paraphernalia.
But honestly, Professor, I mean, this is fascinating in terms of, the entire expanse that you've just kind of elaborated for us. Obviously, I want to get into the details of the fact that, two things come to my mind. One is, of course, I had a wonderful conversation with Professor Rajiv Singhal, and he pointed out some things which I thought were exactly what you're talking about, right? He talked about this entire making a list of 1,000 problems that India is facing. Let's go ahead and try to solve 100. Then from there, scale things up, etc. All of that. But also, he mentioned something which I thought made a lot of sense to me. He said that people in research or people who are experts need to be a part of the committee which is actually taking the decision. It cannot be just the bureaucrats who are probably not, and I'm not pointing a finger, but I'm just saying, who are probably not as knowledgeable or probably are stuck in some sort of red tapeism, call it whatever it is. But it just slows down the process. It kind of kills the excitement before it's kind of taken flight. That's one thing. The other aspect which I'd like you to please shed light on is, what you're talking about, sir, is something which is going to impact our lives as general citizens of the country. Why is it that we are not even aware of it? Why is it that people are not talking about it? You know, these are some fabulous, initiatives that you're talking about that IAIRO has taken. Not a lot of people tend to kind of understand things like this, I'm talking about the general media, in terms of going ahead and really kind of, bouncing things up, because this is a wonderful pathway that India can take, where we don't need to compete with an OpenAI, we don't need to compete with an Anthropic, etc. And we can build our own sort of a world.
Yes. So let me take your
Sorry,
first...
I took some time, but I spoke from a lot of
No.
passion. So
Perfect. Let me take your first question. And I have a fantastic story to share with you on this. Before I came to back to India, as you know, I was in US for 44 and a half years. I would frequently visit India and visit all the academic institutions. I had an offer to be a vice chancellor and founding director of one of them, but time was not right. And all my faculty colleagues used to tell me that the whole research funding system was broken, that they would have bureaucrats make decisions, and that they would get two-line review of why accepted or not accepted,
right.
and very little input from the right people who can judge
Yes.
the quality of proposal and such. Well, I have to give credit to this new institution, ANRF, and in particular its CEO, Shiv Kumar Kalyan Raman. We, by the way, both were at Ohio State at one time. I was a few years ahead of him.
Wonderful.
But Shiv has completely transformed the process of funding, and he took a chance on me along with a couple of other colleagues. So I was asked to co-chair the big AI for India, AI for Science and AI for Engineering mission proposal panel. So I co-chaired that, and I'm happy to say that in the end, I had the satisfaction of having put in place the process with my colleagues that joined. That is no worse than, as good or even better than National Science Foundation that I have served for many, many years.
That's brilliant.
So what happened this time is that every proposal, so I'll just talk about one of the mission thing. It had roughly 500 proposals. Every proposal got 3 and detailed reviews, not
Wonderful.
something small, and sometimes 4 or 5. Secondly, we shortlisted from these 1/10 of them and call them for a presentation. So they had a video presentation, then we had question answer, and then we had deliberation in the committee. So we literally spent 40 minutes or more per proposal going through that in extreme detail.
Wonderful.
Another thing that I can say for sure is that there were no favoritism. That I sense that everything went through the merit, and every team that presented, that were these finalists, went with the feeling that they were really treated very well. Whether we were able to offer them or not, they very much could see that the significant effort that they had put in to create large teams and write this
Right.
proposal for 10, 20 crore, budget, they got respect, and they got real feedback, and they got good sense that they were treated very, very fairly.
Wonderful.
So I think that we have transformed our in a matter of just a few months now,
Sure.
our thing. And I had some exceptionally good colleagues on the panel that came from all over the India, and they were all very qualified and respectful. So I think we are changing that. So that's a very, very positive story for
It truly
that I
is.
would, yeah.
I agree with you, Professor. It truly is. And you know, one thing which for me is extremely fabulous as a takeaway is the fact that I personally feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but somebody who actually puts in their life's work into making a proposal, you know, going through that entire rigmarole, it's a laborious process. The person deserves, according to me, respect, as you mentioned very
Yes.
correctly. And I think that is something which they then carry back as an emotion. It doesn't deflate them. You know, it motivates them to say, okay, fair, we didn't get it, but at least we got a rewarding sort of an interaction, which is what probably goes ahead and makes it far more forward-looking for them.
I literally start every conversation whenever I was the chair by thanking them, and
Wonderful.
pointing out the effort that they had put in, and just as an upbeat message. And the ANRF staff has also put in tremendous effort in that. So I think that the whole organization is of a kind that we will not had before. Earlier there were some decisions made in DST and this and that, but now something like ANRF is really a professional organization, and I think taking us forward. And I think there will be a lot more energy among the researchers in competing for these funds. Although we do
Wonderful.
need a lot more funding. We were only able to fund 1% of the proposals. So
That's fine.
I would like to. I like to see that go to 5 to 10%.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but
For
yeah.
sure. And we are rooting for that, Professor. But I mean, it's great to know that at least times are changing, as Bob Dylan would say, and the fact that people's mindset is also kind of changing from the point of view of the fact that, "Arey yaar, proposal de diya, pata nahi koi dekhega, nahi dekhega." The old mindset. I'm so glad that that's changing. Which brings me to this. You just spoke about the fact that you would like that number going up. I'm just going to share a number with you. India ranks second globally in AI research paper output, behind China, as I had mentioned earlier. On citation influence, India ranks fourth, Professor.
Sudhi, I'm not sure in AI I see that.
Okay.
So, for example, for many years, I'm a fellow of AAAI. I go to one of these largest conference, AAAI or NeurIPS or EMNLP and others. For every one paper from India, there are more than 20 from China. So, and there are 6, 7 from US. So I do not see the volume, but I also don't see the quality at all.
That is the question I was going to ask you. What, according to you, is the gap then, Professor? That's what I wanted you to probably shed light on.
Yes, so the gap is tremendous. It shows up in the innovation that DeepSeek and Kimi models showed. Just this recently, Kimi, the company that came up with the Kimi model, is just founded, Millennium, just founded in 2023.
Right. Correct.
Now, and just a couple of years earlier, DeepSeek, what happened? When they decided to do these organizations, they had access to world-class trained PhDs and researchers. So at India AI, Impact Summit, I was on a panel.
Right.
And I started with this question to about 100 or so people in the audience. How many of you think that if I were the founder or director of DeepSeek, I could get the 200, 250 people that they were able to get, that he was able to get?
Right.
3 people raised hand. 2 of them clearly were uninformed, very, very young chaps. So I don't know the third person if he was very well informed or not. But essentially, if I look for that quality of people, I can't get it here. Why? Because 88% of Chinese
Right.
in our field have gone back to China.
True.
That number is less than 20% for India.
True.
Uh, and that we all know about the Chinese scholar program. They took top professors from US and literally gave them $1 million for their labs, and also very decent compensation too. And so I had a dinner with the dean of Tsinghua University, and I saw their resources, and this was a little while ago. And I mean, they were totally intent in developing world-class organization. The facilities I saw at Tsinghua exceeded any university I saw in US or anywhere in the world. So they took the higher education very, very seriously, and they brought in the people. So now coming back to India,
Right.
we will have to play similar game. See, the times have changed, and the chances that we can get top people coming back to India is much better than ever before. And there are some new programs coming up in India, like Prime Minister's chair professors and some other things that are coming now from ANRF and DST. That is fantastic. Very small, comparatively though, extremely small amount of investment for that, but it has started. That's one good thing. Now, IAIRO promised that about 1/3 of our employees will be coming back from US, and we are changing the game in two different ways. First of all, we are outright hiring some of the top talent. So our first employee after me is a guy who spent 7 years in US and got his master's from University of Texas Austin,
Fabulous.
who happens to have worked with one of the founding members, Dave Nyogi, who is also been interviewed by AIM. He's a UNESCO chair professor in climate.
Right.
The fourth person we hired has been in US for 13 years, and he has been at a top level in product management at Amazon.
Wonderful.
And so he just joined this week itself, and we have some exceptional professors in pipeline that will be joining us later this year. So first of all, that we are doing. There's another very interesting thing that is happening that has never, I think, happened before. IAIRO is positioning such, sovereign AI, serving the nation, and handling very large problems, that we are routinely getting offers from the top Indians in all around the world. This includes two guys at DeepMind, one person at, and that includes a person who has worked on pre-training of some of the largest AI models, both textual and video. So now, with my employees and my young researchers are having weekly call. Now, so we have access to the world-class talent in doing so. Obviously, for IP purpose and all that, those people will not work on what they will work with their company and such. But nevertheless, we have access to the talent that we need. In India, how many people know pre-training of large models? It will be very, very small number.
True.
Okay. In the US, that number is about 150.
Fabulous.
Okay. So similarly, the person who is at Google happens to be a core person in the agentic product. And similarly, a person from IBM happens to be right in the thick of their core models and such, and Amazon and such.
True.
And we gotten also, in fact, on this Friday, a gentleman from UK is visiting. He wants to contribute. Then from Australia and New Zealand. So right now, I have more offer for consulting and pro bono.
Wonderful.
Then I have yet employee to get in. So it's a very unique ecosystem where we are making a leveling field. where even if we are getting some of the top talent here,
Sure.
and B, we have access to the talent that well, they are getting $1 million a year. I'm not going to be able to get all of them here, but they want to give back to the country. And so,
So
along with those
encouraging.
5 professors who are working, continuously with us, we have weekly calls and work together. Their students are coming here and so on and so forth. We have this top-notch engineering talent available that will transform away. So right now, I am not at a lack of availability of top consulting or talent knowledge for what we want to work on. And hence, we are working on some of the very ambitious things like video model generations, video generation models, and many things of that nature.
It is wonderful. Professor, then, let me go ahead and further your point. I think Sarvam did something wonderful because you have hit the nail on the head, because I also personally believe that talent is what will make forever the distinguishing mark all the time. Now, Sarvam has very recently gone ahead and brought on Mr. Devendra Chaplot, ex-Mistral, ex-Thinking Machines Labs, briefly at XAI, etc. You know the entire resume as far as that wonderful gentleman goes. Now, he stays based in Palo Alto, working from Sarvam's new San Francisco office. So the question I have for you is, what you've talked about as IAIRO as an institution is trying to build an ecosystem, probably a runway, probably more like a networking system which will allow various other industries to have access to things. That's the way I've been able to understand it till now. But how about the industry itself going ahead and taking that initiative, because that will only further accelerate the process? Now, Sarvam moved to him, he didn't move to India. Now, is that a genuine, according to you, reverse brain drain, or the opposite? India importing credibility instead of building the conditions, which I believe is very important, to bring people like him home. What are your thoughts on that?
Let me share our model,
Fair.
and the distinction will be very clear. So if you ask me one thing that I'm most proud about, that is my Gurukul. That means I have
Beautiful.
trained some of the world's best talent until now in US. I'll just give you example. Yesterday was defense of my 41st PhD student, and of course there are a number of postdocs also. Now my students have been exceptionally successful, almost always competing with Stanford, CMU, Berkeley, MIT, and so on and so forth.
We are not surprised, Professor. We are not surprised.
Yeah, but here is a very interesting thing. I came to conclusion about 2 years ago that I think I can create the same Gurukul ecosystem in India.
Wonderful.
Why? So here is why. What happened is that in the last 3, 4, 5 years, a lot of Indian undergrads who want to do PhDs or do research or build research careers started to come to me. So I noticed that each year my team in the US produce 40 to 60 publications. And I noticed that on more than half of them, on average, there were 2.5 undergraduate students or master students from India as co-authors.
Nice.
By doing so, these are smart guys. They got into the top places for their whatever. One of my students went had fully funded offer from University of Washington, Southern California, and MIT Media Labs, and she's currently at Media Labs doing fantastic job. So I noticed that the talent is there in India, the desire is there in India. What lacks is the ecosystem.
Sure.
And that is a very unique ecosystem. So while I was in academia, I was able to create a very comprehensive ecosystem with very strong industry collaborations, for example. As you also introduced, I have myself done startups with research funded by. See, Google was founded by these two chaps whose page rank algorithm was invented as part of NSF funded project. Exactly, right?
Right.
Now, the same way has happened in my case, where I gotten millions of dollars of funding, and some of them had practical importance. So we developed. My students work on it, and my students and I founded the companies, right? And they were all AI product companies. But one of the very interesting thing I did was, see, I started with industry jobs and I had commercial products. Then I went to academia and then I also did the startups. So I
Sure.
have very eclectic entrepreneur,
True.
academic, and researcher, mindset. So all my PhD students do 3 or 4 internships at the top places, and because my alumni are successful, in fact, there's a great network. Many of my students get recruited for internship by alumni and their colleagues, and then once
Fair.
you are intern, you get offer also for the job.
Fair.
So the students I produce are very unique. They publish papers on the average 25 to 40 before they graduate. The normal is 3 or 4 papers. Okay,
Right.
the average citation of my PhD students is more than 500 before they graduate, and 1/3 of them have more than 1,000
Wonderful.
citations
Wonderful.
each. Then all of them would have given multiple tutorials, labs,
Sure.
other things at conferences. That means they are part of they make a network. That means they get known. And these are given by, jointly with IBM, researcher or employee, Bosch researcher or employee, HP researcher employee. That's where they do internships and they do this. Then each of them get to train and mentor students. It is not unusual for some of them to mentor 15, 20 students, starting with high school students all the way to their peers.
Sure.
And then they also do a lot of hands-on work. So they publish, but they actually know how to develop technology and connect with the market. I'll give you a very interesting example. One of my former PhD students has a near unicorn. And he
Nice.
was from Silicon Valley, and he was on a trip to New York to meet customers. He took off. It's a Gurukul, so he took off the whole day, flew to South Carolina, and spent the whole day with my students.
Nice.
And all the questions my student had about startups and building the companies and the real world, they get hands-on. They get this from horse's mouth kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
So we build that kind of ecosystem where there is exceptional interactions with the outside world, not limited to a professor talking to 2 students.
Makes sense.
Right? And so I would have typically a large group of 25 to 40 students, and they are tiered and they learn from each other. And so that strong ecosystem is what we are bringing here. Well, today we just started short time ago, and we lost up 2-3 months for the funding delays and all that. So in these 3 months, I already have around 15 students.
Wonderful.
Who are exceptional. They are from IIT Madras. They are from less known place, but as Malcolm Gladwell has noted, top student from a mediocre place always beats mediocre student from a top place.
Absolutely.
So I gathered this unique talent, and now they are in this ecosystem. And in IAIRO, at one place, we have researchers, including academic types. We have, and of course, research assistant, research scholar, pre-docs and postdocs. We have engineers.
Nice.
We have product managers.
Nice.
And we have companies being incubated, and they come here all the time, and we do the co-development. And then we have very vast, network of investors. Juhi Bhatnagar, whom I brought in from the very beginning. This is a very unique decision that I am building a research organization, but I brought in Juhi, who
It's
has
crucial,
already
sir.
become
It is crucial.
investor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she brought in and she developed the startup program, and she in one day she had me meet 10 VCs, including one
Fabulous.
that flew from Bangalore just for lunch. When I went to Singapore, seven of their top VCs investing in India came up together, and they all want to invest in deep tech AI startups. So when a
Wonderful.
startup is being incubated here with our pedigree and with our platform, and we stand behind the depth of the IP, I think we can expedite what Modi ji has asked us from prototype to products.
Wonderfully put, sir, and thank you so much for such a brilliant insight. And I love the idea of a Gurukul ecosystem. But to, let's say, further that, and like you said, like, you know, to accelerate that as quickly as possible, funding plays a very important role. So, you know, only very recently I was having a conversation with Professor Kesavan of Bitsom, and he spoke about a few things where where he says that, you know, in a way, what he's also trying to do is he's trying to create a corridor where a lot of the funding is coming from San Francisco, all right, because, well, let's say that's a lot more of a mature sort of an ecosystem. So at least it doesn't frustrate the students who are just passing out with a degree, who want to go ahead and get into that. So having said that, I want to talk to you about this. He gave me a few figures. He's talked about, you know, India only ends up spending, for example, only $75 billion as far as research is concerned. When you compare that to the United States, it's almost 4% of its GDP. China does somewhere about 3.5%, etc. Which brings me to this then. I had this thought, which I wanted you to probably go ahead and educate us all on. Now, Indian capital, both private and government, has historically flowed toward companies with commercial traction, not toward unproven, high-risk, foundational research, the way, let's say, a DARPA-style funding works in the United States. Now, is that funding culture itself the actual root cause, sir? And does India simply refuse to bet on research before it's already been proven somewhere else first? Because somewhere I feel maybe that is something which maybe we are lacking in confidence.
I'm glad you asked this question, and I wish I can portray as bright a note in this particular area based on my personal experience that is already there. But I'll also show some, share with you some ray of hope.
Yeah.
The Indian corporates are now. I've had quite a few interactions with them. Are just not interested in innovation and investment in anything long term. Even for organization like IAIRO, which has a national purpose and all that, they are asking for short term outcome, just like they would hire a contractor to deliver on a quarterly basis. This mindset is very worrisome, and I do not have a good idea as to how that will change. Perhaps philanthropic organizations can step in a bit more. Mr. Vadvani, funded a couple of wonderful initiatives at IIT,
Sure.
Chennai, as well as Madras, as well as in Mumbai. Now they have moved to Delhi. But the corporates have basically, the ones that I've talked to, wanted something of commercial value in a very short term. Secondly, in things like of very high value, such as drug discovery, drug repurposing, I haven't yet found the right people willing to invest even time to bring in to understand what we can offer. So one of the collaborators in one of the 4 or 5 founding professors here, he has worked with IIT Madras, and he had a paper on genuine molecular discovery for a cancer application, and it has been published. It was in all Indian newspapers and so on and so forth. And we have built a prototype, a very solid prototype, to essentially show that entire process of how this discovery was done. So one of the area that we lead probably in the world is called knowledge graph. This is a very important new technology in AI. It is incidentally, I was asked to give a keynote on knowledge graph in front of 600 plus people in China, in Chengdu, in 2017.
Wonderful.
That shows how fast they understood the trend, and they
Right.
have overtaken US on that particular area and application, which is a core to what I call this neuro-symbolic AI. Anyway, so we have a commercial grade tool for creating this knowledge graph, and how you apply to create this next generation of model, including drug discovery kind of models or drug
Sure.
repurposing model. And I'm having a little bit of a struggle, and the companies want to compete among themselves rather than creating at least common base that then they can customize or so. So, and similarly, I've had several other sectors or industries that I have gone forward. Some of the see, management is very smart, and some of them are, but again, by and large, here a broad statement would be that they don't want to invest in anything long term, and even in the short term, they are treating research as something that can for a 6 month deliverable kind of thing. That has to
That
be
can't
changed.
happen. That just
Yeah.
can't happen.
Now, on the other hand, the improvement in government funding, so that 0.69% and all that, I just saw a post by the former DST secretary, and he said now that we are reaching 0.85%.
Okay. That's at least some
So
improvement.
maybe there is some improvement going on, and this collective thing, with ANRF, DST, India AI mission, I think there is a clear improvement over the last 2-3 years, and I hope that thing continues. What I feel needs to happen is now, for example, where IRO needs to go is to reach out to some of the major philanthropic organizations and see, just like Mr. Vadwani invested more, and there have been some investments. For example, Anand Deshpande gave a good amount to his alma mater, IIT, and that more of that needs to happen, and that is happening. BITS Pilani has gotten some funding and on such, but organizations like IRO need a lot more infusion, and we can deliver a lot more by bridging. See, one very interesting thing to observe is that we absolutely need top-notch universities. When I had a chance to talk to some policymakers, I gave them the example in 2009 that Google had become $100 billion company in 4 or 5 years after going public. Indian GDP at that time was 1.1 trillion.
Right.
So wealth creation through knowledge economy can be very fast, very rapid.
Oh, I agree.
And Silicon Valley kind of thing is, we need to emulate. But in addition to further improving the university system, we need to have more of these independent research organizations. Why? Because we can connect academia and industry and startup extremely well. We are doing it, and so we now have very, very solid MOUs with IIT Gandhinagar, with BITS Pilani. In fact, the Vice Chancellor of BITS Pilani is visiting us in the next week. And of course, I met Dr. Muna many times, and we have collaborations with University of Pennsylvania. They came to us. University of Texas Austin, working on University of California, Irvine, and many others. And these are not for declarations. These are not for showpiece.
Fair.
They actually have concrete thing. For example, with Penn State, we are working on quantum AI. With University
Wonderful.
of Texas, Austin, we are working on weather and extreme weather models and urban, and digital twins. So, for example, one of the major application area of what we are working on is, let's say we have smart cities, and there are a lot of data out there. And how do you bring the value of those to citizens? How can you predict this unusual rain that kills hundreds of people in Uttarakhand
Right.
funds,
Right.
or urban flooding? And so the current weather models are,
Yes.
gross level,
True.
and so we
It'll
are
help the
developing hyper
farmers,
local.
Professor, in such a
Yes,
big way.
exactly.
It'll help the farmers in such a
Exactly.
big
If you
way to
can give
plan
them
their crops, to
wonder.
plan their irrigation, to plan their pesticide control methodologies. I mean, there's so many things.
And so if you give them 1 or 2 day, advance notice, they can take down at least some of their crop before they lose all of them,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
To untimely rain. So these are the class of. So coming to that general issues, if I may say, we have chosen health, pharma,
Right.
sustainability, so weather, environment, education, and power as our initial thing. We have products coming out in education. Here is a very interesting product. There is NPTEL courses, right?
Yes.
Now we have a plugin that will allow you to take that video on your self-pace. It builds a model for what you are learning. It automatically offers you evaluations, and then it points you to the gaps that it finds. So now, instead of a drab video that you have to watch for an hour or so, you have an interactive, personalized assistant to help you learn. Other thing we have done is to create a coursework for high schoolers in AI. So there is a very large NGO called Computer Shiksha that has been teaching computer science to 22 lakh students in 28 states. And its founder is also from BIS Pilani. And when I got distinguished Alumnus Award, he also got a service award. And he said, "Can we give them content?" I've been teaching summer camp in US for high schoolers.
Fair enough.
So we created the content. Now that content is being finally produced, and now it'll be rolled out in a couple of months to this very large case. So
Very
now
nice.
a 10-year a student in 10th grade would understand how Krishi, there is this company my former PhD student has, Krishi.ai, or I'm missing the name. And it gives services to the farmers. And so now this 10 grader can tell his father all the AI
Wonderful.
facilities available free of cost.
Wonderful.
And in their own language. So this is a way that we can, very quickly spread for social and economic value to the nation.
As far as this particular understanding and topic is concerned, Professor, thank you so much again for all of your insights. There is, of course, a silver lining that you spoke about when it comes down to the funding aspect of things. There is a slight improvement from probably 0.69% to 0.85%. But I still feel that so much more needs to be done as far as the industry is concerned. Nikhil Malhotra himself, who's the head of innovations at Tech Mahindra, I was having a conversation with him. And at least I loved his honesty. He said, I am at fault myself. I'm not publishing enough in terms of papers, etc. and things like that. So at least, it's good when one of the largest leaders, or one of the most leaders at the forefront, is actually accepting it, which at the end of the day goes ahead and talks about the fact that maybe, just maybe, moving forward, industry might start to kind of see a sense in this entire situation. And I also feel, by the way, Professor, that it's a cultural issue. when it comes down to investing in research and not just constantly looking at very fast turning capital which is moving, etc. I can give you an example of sport. Mirabai Chanu, what a wonderful Olympic athlete, has won medals. And I remember when she got after winning the medal, when she got the grant from the government and she got the money, etc., and a job, she ended up saying, I wish you would have paid me earlier, I might have gotten you the gold. So yes, I agree, it is across the board.
But now what is happening is that, see, in the West, I've seen the academic industry collaborations work much better than it does here. But now I think several of us are engaged in the activity to actually show that they can get very both short-term and long-term value.
Fair point.
The currently, let's say, pharma is acquiring other company at $1 billion valuation, but at a fraction of the cost, the same technology could have been developed by them.
Yep.
We will like to show that this is doable by organizations like ours. See, what happens is that in the past, the research has been very siloed. True. And hence it is natural that the corporates did not see the value. Plus our startup ecosystem was also not there, and now with the government support and otherwise there is a very robust startup ecosystem. So yes, even if the corporates are lagging, startups are not lagging in taking the knowledge out of research and doing that, right?
Fair point.
By the way, I forgot, I meant to say Abhay Karandikar, whose post recently talked about
0.85%, correct, sir. Fair point. I have to ask you this. Is IAIRO trying to be India's DeepMind, one? And is one institution enough? Or does India need several competing ones the way the US and China both do? I know IAIRO is doing wonderful work.
But IAIRO is very small, starting very small with very, very modest investment. Think about it. A current 5-year
it's at least an initiative, sir. Abhi tak to tha bhi nahi. At least now it's there. No, it's being led by somebody as you. You're creating a Gurukul. But let's say moving forward, do you feel creating an environment is also important where you have a lot more institutions like IAIRO for healthy competition with each other?
We need a lot more for sure. IAIRO can't be alone. IAIRO is pioneering one specific model. The model where we have talent creation, sovereign AI technology creation, startup and national applications all in one case. But there are many permutation combination that need to be undertaken.
Okay.
And I think that there could be research organizations associated but not part of good academic organizations. So that is one possible additional model that we need to have. Other thing we need to have is that corporations need to invest in research organizations. I remember at some time a high official from Infosys had reached out to me when I was in the US, and they were trying to build a research organization. I don't think that it has gone as far as their own expectations were. But now the time is there. Now the time is there where I think that they can see high return on their investment, and they can see the increase in the valuation of the company by having the innovation. So just like any company have a hard asset and a kind of what is called goodwill. Company's goodwill can be worth a lot, right?
Right.
I think that some companies, Mahindra is investing a lot more, has done amazing amount of automation. And so there are more of those. They need to create the corporate labs. Now take example of areas like robotics.
Correct.
They will need to have robotics, embodied AI. So IAIRO, after going for the core AI, we are going into embodied or physical AI and quantum AI.
Wonderful.
But if you take this new emerging area, they will have to have much larger investment in research. You cannot just continue to buy Chinese.
I agree.
Yesterday, we had talked about a colleague was here from Bispilani, Goa, and he's building humanoid-based operating system. But best option available is a 22 lakh humanoid from China. We can't. That's not the way for India ahead. So we are going to
100%.
have to build our own hardware and our own software, and when we combine them, we can be a serious player on the world stage. So I
Wonderful.
just the same way in several areas. Just today I was seeing the news item that in six sectors, India's have some of the best manufacturing in the world.
Yeah.
And so the example of Dixon or L&T and so on and so forth.
Sure.
I think that that thing can be replicated in other fields, particularly these high tech fields, I think we can grow very fast.
Fair point, sir. I, of course, can carry on this conversation, and because there's just so much, of course, still that I would like to go ahead and, pull the curtains back on. But I'd request you, I want to end on or conclude on this aspect, which I think is a high for all of us as Indians. And here I go. On 18th of July, Skyroot's Vikram 1 became the first privately built Indian rocket to reach orbit, founded by engineers who came out of deep research training at ISRO. And this was not a product-first startup playbook, sir. So is Skyroot the proof that your entire thesis works? That when India actually invests in the underlying science first, the breakthroughs follow. What does that story get right that most of Indian AI still gets wrong? And what needs to be done? Very briefly, Professor. I know you have spoken with so much of deep insights, but well, this is deep research. So this is your domain.
Amen, tathastu.
Hare wow, beautiful, sir. Beautiful. Wonderfully put. And I can't like go ahead and say and anything to that, but just do this. I wish whatever you just said comes true. Professor, thank you so much. It's been, truly an honor having you with us. And I want to take this opportunity to please invite you again for an exclusive as things develop, as things go, because there is still so much that we need to go ahead and truly, in a way, spread that knowledge, spread all of the things that you're talking about for the people to understand that yes, India is moving in the right direction, albeit slowly right now, but with these conversations, it might help to accelerate things.
Thank you very much. It was a great opportunity for me to share this story, and I think we are all in this together to, for a very, very rapid progress in India.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I couldn't put it any better than the professor itself, and I'm not surprised. But please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.